This is why we need a theme song to start things off with. That way everyone knows what's going on. Okay.
Jeopardy.
Jeopardy. Whoa. Okay.
That's not copyrighted.
But alright. Okay, this is number 7, isn't it? Okay, podcast number 7. Here we go. From the left, we have Amps.
Hi, my favorite psychopath lolly is Elise.
Nice. Then we have TGP.
Hi, I'm the editor. Hello.
And Ranmax.
Hello, I'm a stream mod.
Okay, wow.
There's not much to my character.
Right. Okay. Well, and then we have our special guest, Akariss. Yay!
Hey.
Hello.
My name is Akariss.
It's okay. I'll get it right one day.
Thanks for having me, guys. Some of you know me as a teacher, and those of you that don't, now you do. I teach people how to play Fire Emblem, and I teach people English. So
Nice.
Hopefully you take something and learn something out of this podcast as well. Thanks for having me.
So now's the time when we grill them with questions, right?
Yes. Okay. Well, a lot of these things I already know, but I don't think a lot of people know. So how did you end up in this great journey of becoming a teacher? Not just in like real life, but in Fire Emblem as well.
That's a long story, but
Yeah, I know.
Let's start with the part that doesn't bore people. So the most interesting parts of the story is I live in Eastern Europe. I don't live in North America, which I used to, which is why I don't have like any accents. That would come off strange from an Eastern European. I moved here because it's a lower cost of living and just socially it's more in line with how I value people. That's its own topic, but generally speaking, I'm happier here. It's lower cost of living, and I really value just kind of helping people out. And being a teacher, it's a more active job versus a more passive job, which I had in my career previously. So, yeah, along with getting the motivation and passion of helping people, it's just nice to wake up and know that you helped someone out every day. Along with that, I kind of had more free time. So with that free time, I just started playing Fire Emblem on the internet, and then people took something out of that. So here I am.
That's nice. Nowadays, how much time do you stream for? And when do you stream from?
3 to 4 hours a day, every day except Friday. On Twitch, of course. And obviously it varies by time zone, but it's in a time zone that's convenient for both Europeans and North Americans to watch. North Americans, it's morning to early afternoon, and for Europeans, it's in the evening.
I still remember watching your streams at the first time, but it was like at lunchtime. I was just thinking to myself, wow, what an awkward time to stream. And then of course, learn more about you.
For me, it's just I come home and I just play my hobby online and have fun doing it, and hopefully someone takes something out of it. That's how I view it. Because if I wasn't streaming or producing Fire Emblem content, I'd probably just be on the couch playing Fire Emblem anyways. So to me, it's no different whether I'm on the internet or not.
It's been a year and it's still the same reasoning. That's nice.
Some things never change.
Yeah. Okay, well, that said, when you first started off, you were a pay-to-play player, to a certain degree anyways, and then you transitioned to this free-to-play thing. So how that happened? When did you decide to jump into my niche?
That sounds quite of a hostile question. Jeez.
He has to flex on it sometimes, but go on.
My decision had absolutely nothing to do with
No,
yours.
I'm sure. Yeah.
I just didn't see any value in spending money in the game anymore, and just decided, hey, I'm just not going to spend money on the game anymore. However, there are some additional reasons to it.
Mm-hmm.
One, I used to manage 2 accounts.
Yeah.
So that before Ether raids, that was manageable. But after Ether Raids, it became unmanageable. So as soon as Ether Raids came out and it required a daily obligation, I'm like, oh, I don't have the time to manage 2 accounts. And then at that point, it became a question of, do I value my free-to-play accounts or do I value my pay-to-play account? And honestly, what values most to me is because I have a competitive nature as a player, or just a willingness to challenge myself. I just said, hey, it's more fun to me to play under restrictions and low resources and win that way instead of spending for it. Because honestly, the pay-to-play account was like just a mix of being competitive and summoning for like favorites more often. The most realistic criticism I get, or like the most common one, is like, oh, I don't play for fun, or it's not a fun playstyle. But I feel that's very subjective. And honestly, when it comes down to some choices, I still pick my favorites over my non-favorites. There's a lot of characters that, you know, people like, oh, he doesn't summon or use characters I like. But no, honestly, I love Camilla, and you know, that's pretty controversial. That's pretty controversial. But
no kidding.
yeah, I use Camilla, and you know, she's on like so many teams. Other examples of that are like Sander, but I'm sure everyone knows that at this point. There were already many times for him to not be here, like not be on that account anymore, but I've kind of reluctantly kept him going, even if it wasn't the smartest decision or the most optimal or the most competitive choice. There's other examples, but I'm sure anyone who's takes some time to, you know, see what I'm about, it's more than just like guns blazing boring stuff to play. I mean, if you just want to be the best you can be, it's just really fun to me, and I think you can take that even into real life, not just honestly.
Like, teacher god.
Sorry.
It's all right. Okay, well, for me, you know, I still remember when we met up last year and you showed me that Mia, and I still thought that was super cool. Not to mention the other things you showed me, like Lilna and Blazing Light. I mean, that was well ahead of its time. Well, it was, some people already showed it off back then, but like, yeah, that became a lot more standardized going forward.
Oh man, you got that right.
Yeah.
You go into AR.
Yeah, I know.
Videos everywhere.
It's funny that you mentioned that, but that's another reason. Like the Mia is a good example of it. I felt kind of disappointed that it couldn't use characters like that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I invest in these characters and I don't feel like I don't feel like I get my value out of it, like either as resources, money, whatever you might look at it, and it just feels like a frustration to try to use those characters when I know there's better options sometimes.
Exactly.
Like just using Mia as like, oh, why don't I just use Soleil, or why don't I just invest into Athena and not spend thousands of orbs for Mia? Like there's just these always recurring thoughts that I just have to ask myself every time I play Feb, because it's a game of resources, and I just don't feel like I'm making intelligent decisions when I have those type of investments, regardless of whether the character is my favorite or not.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too. For a lot of people, they feel like that, which leads me to like ask you, like, you know, when people quit the game, and I think you've noticed that too. Like, what do you notice is the biggest reason? I'll tell you about a few later, but I want to hear you first.
Oh, the biggest one for sure is like when people don't know what they're playing for.
Yeah, that's true.
It's literally that, man. Like they just summon on every banner, and they don't like Arena, or they don't like Ether Raids, and they don't like Abyssals, and they don't like Surtur. Like you'll just hear something like this, and then, you know, they just won't last because they just don't want to commit to any specific mode or give themselves any goals in the game. You got to give yourself something to play for besides summoning, because at the end of the day, summoning isn't something you achieve, it's just something you do, like a means to an end. You summon, you get something, now what are you doing with that? Like, you don't play Arena, you don't play Ether Raids, you don't play Abyssal, you're going to build the unit? Well, that doesn't take very long, so are you done? Like, that's honestly the most common thing I see when it comes to people quitting the game, because they just get bored and don't have any reason to play the game. And then they come back when there's a new banner, of course, but that's a totally different topic.
No, I get you. I hear that too, yeah. For me, Sorry. No, it's all right. For me, one of the biggest reasons, like I still am in contact with a lot of people who have quit the game because I play so many other gacha games. Because of that, like I hear about why they quit and what other games they're playing now, and then I can still interact with them afterwards and then hear what they think of the game now from our outside perspective. And one of the biggest things was, like, I would know of whales, right? Whales who spent hundreds, thousands of dollars in the game, and then they dropped the game because they built these heroes and they couldn't use them, so much like your Mia. They just got very frustrated from that point. And then, of course, there's not a lot of things for them to play for. The game is way too focused on summoning, of everything being dictated by summoning. Like, if you want to compete in arena, you need those orbs to get those skills, to get those merges, to get those heroes, and then you can compete. Like, it's just...
I totally agree with you. Up until the Grail system, which is honestly, I'm biggest fan of that. It's like the biggest and best solution for consistent progression that doesn't involve frustration through the gacha. And you're in total control of how many Grails you get, and that's just the best feeling in the world, because you can just say, like, I'm going to invest in BK and get a high score, I'm going to invest in Elwood, Halloween Dorcas. You can make your own decisions like this, and it's at your own pace. Even if it takes a long time, that doesn't... I never feel like that's a really good reason, because it's always taken a long time to get merges. That's never changed. You're not going to get like a +10 unit in 2 months. It has always taken a really long time to get those merges. So that's a contrast to your statement there.
Sure, but that also involves a big commitment. So imagine if you're a new player and you come into this game. Okay, what would you even say to a new player in that position then? Because you already know, like, as a new player, the first inclination is to, well, summon, to go for whatever banners, get a bunch of heroes and progress from there. But realistically, if you wanted to do that as best as you can...
I would argue a new player is in such a huge advantage with the amount of knowledge they can attain. They would be in a better player than even a day one. They would be in a better spot than a day one player. I would actually argue that over somebody who's day one, because... Really? Whoa. The current Hero Fest is the only opportunity to get a required character, by the way, in a valuable amount of orbs that can be farmed up through story. You can literally get a +10 air with story orbs through that Hero Fest because it's better value than trying to snipe on mythic or legendary banners. So if you walk into this with a reroll 2 to 3 airs under 40 orbs, farm up story within the first week that you have for that Hero Fest, you got yourself a +10 air, probably a second air, and boom, you got yourself easy tier 21 during light seasons. Like, even with units that are completely free to play. Like, look at the kind of stuff we're getting lately. We're getting Boki, Cam, you get your free close counter literally from Takumi that you get. There's so much of these good resources that you start off with. You just play the game for a week, you can clear all the content, pretty much all the story, with just legendary Ike, Air, Fjorm, and if you pick up like Veronica or whoever else, like you can do pretty much all that as a brand new player. Yeah, there's going to be some knowledge gap there. You're probably, as a new player, like, don't know anything what you're doing, but if you have that mindset to do your due diligence, do your research, you can totally just go straight for the top ranks in AR. And as a result of that, you get lots of grails, and then those grails can lead into trying into arena, for instance. So yeah, I would totally say, because I have so much clutter in my barracks, it's absolutely ridiculous how much stuff I don't use from a day. Like people say, like, oh, you've been playing a long time. I'm like, I don't remember the last time I used my +5 Harden. That guy's been there for like a year now, a year and a half, and he's just been collecting dust. Like, I shouldn't have merged him. It's like that bad type of regret.
Oh wait, I remember when you went for that big pull for Harden a long time ago. But the point was, like, okay, yeah, if they had the knowledge, if they had the plan, then they could do a lot from it. But it's just like selling to a new player that, hey, this is what you should be doing. Because for a lot of players coming into this game, if they have a background in the game, right? So if they played previous Fire Emblem games, they have connections to like those other characters, and just selling to them that you should actually be like saving up your orbs and going in for these specific banners, at least for now, and how significant that is, like, to get them to understand that is just, I don't know, man. I just think, like, having such a restriction, because I never thought the merge system was fitting for this game. It's called Fire Emblem Heroes, but then you don't really get a pick of your heroes to use.
That's its own gacha problem. It's
Yeah.
just, like anyone who comes into this game expecting to get their favorite heroes consistently, like thinking it's Fire Emblem, and you're just gonna walk in here and get your favorite character from the Fire Emblem series is usually gonna lead to disappointment, especially if you consider that you need merges to use them properly within all of the endgame modes.
Exactly.
Especially if they're 5-star exclusive, and even if they are, they may not even be viable, which is
That
on
is
top
the
of
biggest
that
problem.
kind of sadness. So yeah, like people can play for different reasons. Like I've had plenty of people in my community that they don't play Fire Emblem. They don't play Fire Emblem Heroes because it's Fire Emblem. They play Fire Emblem Heroes because it's a non-grindy gacha game that they can play a couple hours a day. They don't have any commitment to those characters specifically, and they can, play it at a competitive level, feel good about the strategy or puzzle solving that they use with any characters that the game provides them with. I have plenty of people who do that, and people play for different reasons. I'm not against playing with your favorites. I think that's all on you guys, like whoever wants to play it that way. And like I've said, if I can get the chance to use someone I like, I'll do it. But it's what I value more personally is going to be playing to win, essentially, because it's just more fun for me. That's how I came to play my current account as it is, because I just like the end game goal of challenging myself and playing with those limited resources. You should know this better than anyone as well.
I
Plenty
do.
of times
Yeah.
where you're probably like, if I had some more orbs, or if I had some more feathers or grails or fodder. I haven't had Hinata show up since a year and a half. No, about a year now, I think. Almost
Oh
a
my
year.
God.
I haven't seen a Hinata. And Kane was like six months ago or so. Like, this is some real sadness. But that's fine, because I make do. And it's fine. I realize what I get myself into, and it's fine. I like it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Fair enough, but hey, the rest of you guys, why haven't you said a thing?
I like
there's
listening
something
to
I want
them.
to add, actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a lot of other heroes that are available now that weren't available when I started playing the game that would be much better for Arena, because I was one of the people that I committed to plus 10 Drog,
Yeah, I know.
and he doesn't hold up very well anymore.
He did get his BST buff from the merge change, to be fair. He wasn't
did.
as good as Sheena and Wendy as an investment, but he got a little bit of a buff there. Beyond that, though,
As a unit, I tried to help him. He's not very good, and I wish I had.
Armors in general have their own problems right now. That's not exclusive to Drog, unfortunately. But he's a good example. Some characters have aged incredibly well in this game, and some have not. I mean, look at Soren or Nino. They've both aged incredibly well. I guess you could argue some dragons are pretty good still, and some not so good. But generally, it just totally depends on what characters get released, whatever the meta calls for that sort of stuff. Splashy buckets, mystic boosts, Lithiobergs, that kind of stuff. Dunes.
Definitely, like, newer players do have the advantage, though, because back when I started, we didn't have, like, Soleils. We would have to build, like, sorry, Nims, but
Wow. Okay. Go ahead. Wow.
but like that's what we had at the time. We had
Yeah.
to make do with Hannahs, and for people that invested into a plus 10 Hannah, and then they see someone else's plus 10 Soleil who's just superior in almost every way.
I'm not upset.
Well, yeah, you're not upset because you like Hannah, but like for people that are just looking at it competitively and want a better unit, like they invested so much into this weaker unit that got power corrupted by this stronger unit.
That's so true. Look, every time I get like a pity break on Azura, on Ephraim, on Ryoma, and by the way, I get these pity breaks. These characters were amazing 2 years ago. Now they aren't as good. So
They're just there.
Well, let's look at the biggest outlier, Takumi, who like reigned over all FEH content when the game first released. I don't think there's anyone out there that uses him.
At least he's got fodder.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very, very valuable fodder.
I do agree with the fact that beginners do have that huge advantage because hindsight is 20/20. They can look up who to get, what to get, and the fact that they have Hero Fest banners. We don't get that. We literally have to wait for them to come. But if a new player pops in, there's a Hero Fest banner. Have at it.
I mean, 10 airs, and while you don't have any colorless to show, you could snipe blue, and a blue can give you an Ophelia. Ophelia's amazing on air defense. Rally up attack for scoring. Luan's got special spiral. You'll like crush PvE content with that. Owain's got Wrath, I guess, so forget that guy. But you know, in general, the other guys are amazing while they're sharing with Hero Fest. And honestly, you dump 1,000 orbs in there, and you're gonna come out way ahead of a day one player because they probably invested in stuff like Ryoma or Takumi and merged Takumi when they shouldn't have. You know, you know, like those. It's not to say all day one players are disadvantaged. I'm not going to argue that at all, because some people still might have been playing with, you know, resources in mind. Think about all the 4-star merged characters at this point, like combat manuals.
Yeah.
Upgrade, expanding your barracks, spending orbs, expanding your barracks. There's so many like these decisions that were like, oof, man, give me back my orbs. I want them back.
And I guess the other disadvantage of being a day one player is the constant frustrations. So, I guess you're right. Yeah.
I was gonna say, they can't be frustrated for getting a pity breaker that we normally wouldn't like because, well, they didn't have them to begin with. So,
5,000 feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
It still feels really bad for me when I get 5 stars. I don't find a need for it. Have you actually sent a home a 5-star?
Never.
Never. Yeah. I can't do it either.
I don't even fodder them either. They just collect
sit there.
dust.
I know.
I wanted to fodder Olwen because I got a minus tech Olwen, and she doesn't do anything. She didn't have any good fodder. I didn't know what to do. There's lots of characters like that. They don't have anything.
Especially all the early ones, their skills are not as great to fodder now as if they were back then. So honestly, unless you were really that desperate for feathers, the best they can do is just merge them up and just have them sit there.
Okay, but how about heroes from the perspective of being a collector? What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, that's like
A lot of players.
Best to relate it to like a trading card game. People loved collecting Pokemon cards or Yu-Gi-Oh cards or Magic the Gathering cards when they were younger, and as an adult, if you play Fire Emblem Heroes, and it's the same feeling, and I can totally relate. It's not like as a kid I picked up Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh and I was like, let's go, rank 1 right now, locals, I can do this. Like, no, Fire Emblem Heroes, you may not have the time, you may not have the drive, or you just don't care about certain things. And as a collector's game, it's not too bad. I would say it's not the greatest though, just because of the IV system kind of being as like a detriment, and the fact that you can't actually have everything you want if you were truly playing for collection reasons without spending the time. And it's literally impossible with the amount of orbs the game gives you, to get summon everything at the rate that the heroes are released. Like if you consider 300 orbs on average a month, if even that anymore.
Yeah.
If even that anymore. But anyways, 300 orbs a month, and you have maybe 8 to 9 heroes released, per month, which is not even unreasonable if you consider seasonals, permanents, and a legendary hero per month. There's no way you can't. There's just no way to get that. 9 heroes would be like 900, minimum 900 orbs on average, up to 1800 orbs to get all those heroes in a month. There's no way. So as a collector, you still have to pick and choose at the end of the day.
The other thing about being a collector is, well, it's not as bad now, but because right now we've been getting a lot of the older banners. It's just, from what kind of game series did you come from? Because you could imagine, like, for people who do actually appreciate Fates and Awakening, at this point they're just getting everything outside the beast units. Well, but majority of the heroes at this point might coming from games that they have no idea about. But in the inverse, like a year ago, you were just going through that slaw of like, anything but like buying Blade banner. That was the first time we had a banner since since when? It was like a ridiculously
I
long
don't
time
think there
ago.
have been any other Binding of Blade banners. I think there was one early on but it was a mix of
Klein and Clarine
Yeah.
were the last time FE6 characters were released.
Right, and that's what I meant. Like you just had like these giant holes. Like it's really strange. And being a collector in this game is just gonna be part of that, like part of that frustration. To even have the opportunity and chance to, and then once it happens, then you got to get lucky enough.
Yeah, that's its own problem with production, honestly. Like if you consider 9 a month released, and at the end of the day, all those characters have to sell. They're just not really going to prioritize, the less popular Fire Emblems, and that's just something you got to accept as maybe that particular Fire Emblem being your favorite. That's on IS though. Like they probably should recognize that maybe they should create like more 3 and 4 star heroes of some of the less popular games. But at the end of the day, it's a company and that's gonna have production costs, and it's not really the stuff people want to hear, right? They're doing what works, and if it didn't work, they wouldn't do it. So I don't think we're just gonna keep getting Fate stuff, even if people hate it, because they have the statistics and we don't. We can't say that Fate selling doesn't work, because if it didn't, it wouldn't be here.
That's actually pretty interesting. We talked about revenue the last podcast as well, and it's well known they release their earnings every year. And year 1 they earned something like $300 million. Year 2 they earned $200 million, and now going to year 3, it's not looking any better. From like the perspective of financials, the argument, I've never liked that argument. You can just trust IS to be right, but you are right. They do have the internal data, and maybe they are trying to make the most of what they can do with it. But it seems like it's a really clear downward trend in terms of revenue and the player base.
But how do we know that's Fate's characters?
It's not necessarily going to be on Fate's characters, but the game as a whole.
First year could be hype of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Second year could be, I don't know. Yeah, like there's this plethora of reasons why somebody may or may not play. A game generally doesn't climb in revenue over time unless they really maintain it well. Like there's not a lot of games that have growth over year.
Well,
at like a subscription-based games. Or like I guess F2P games like this, like they don't really generally do that, at least from my knowledge. Unless we're talking about Fate Go or something. maybe that one is.
No, well, see that's the hard part of in terms of like top 20 gacha games, if we're looking into, well, we can't really look into Japan since this is a global game. But if you look into global games that have reached there, generally they are growing from year 1 to year 2. And we can argue with Fire Emblem Heroes, they had this giant explosion of player base at the start because it was one of the first mobile games. I believe it was the 3rd mobile game coming out from Nintendo, and rightly so, it got all that attention and hype. But it just feels like they didn't do quite enough, and this is the result of it. And right now they're playing catch up, and they're like trying to redeem themselves, producing new things, like finally introducing Beast Heroes, introducing Ether Raids. Well, it was like announced in December, right? But whatever, you get the point. They're throwing in all these new modes and systems, but that kind of felt like they should have always been there.
This ties back into what I was saying earlier. So releasing characters, collection, like that doesn't really keep people playing. Mm-hmm. We have a new mode, so I don't know, rumored to happen in April. And as competitive as I am, I recognize the game actually needs more casual modes. It can't just keep releasing Ether Raids. I can't just keep releasing Ether Raids or arenas, variants of that, and just expect people to like stomach and play it, because honestly, those two already are decently time consuming, especially Ether Raids, from a daily obligation. And they need something where people can just play without worrying about rankings, or maybe get some more social aspects to the game. I was thinking like a co-op game that doesn't necessarily have rankings in it. You can use your friends' heroes and maybe even play it live. Like, I don't know. I'm just throwing out random ideas. I'm not a designer at the end of the day, so I can't really say, but there's got to be something that isn't just summon from my favorite characters and then build them and then I'm done because I don't want to play any of the competitive modes. That's what the game's sorely lacking. If you don't want to be competitive, then there's not really much for you to do in the game.
Would you say that the Dragonflower like stuff is like a step in that direction? Like not a good step, but it is a step in that direction?
Progression is good in my opinion, and especially at a slow pace because it gives people like a long-term goal. Like it gives people motivation to get grails or gain flowers, and that's good. But at the end of the day, if people aren't having fun with the mode, then there's an inner problem with that. And I think the majority of people don't have fun playing ether raids or arenas. I think that's definitely a consensus. It might be a vocal minority. I think there's no way to really tell on this sort of thing, to be honest, especially from my community where most people would probably say they enjoy it. Because I just naturally attract people who want to play the game at a higher level. But when I go on other communities, Reddits, forums, YouTube comments that aren't of my own, I see a different perspective, and it's usually related to summoning, of course, or that they feel like certain characters ruin the game for them. But that's because they're frustrated that they can't get those resources that are behind the competitive modes. And honestly, building your characters could be more done in different modes that don't feel like you're trying to compete with the dude beside you all the time.
I do feel like IS is listening to these people that are complaining about these heroes that kind of like wallgate them though, because we've gotten Idun, who like seems like a serious third counter, and now we have Paula.
Yeah, I look at these things and I just laugh because it's like, do you really need this? Like, do you really need this solution? I mean, aren't you building characters? You can use stuff like TA. You can use stuff like axe breakers. There's dragon slaying weapons, but I don't know.
I had something to ask you, but now I'm kind of forgetting. Oh wait, no. Okay, I don't need a moment for it. Somebody asked something else.
Actually, I do have a question. As a person who spent money, was it truly a hard decision for you to quit your paid account?
Not really. At first,
I would feel like.
At first it was like you probably get the same maybe a feeling of regret or maybe psychological attachment because you sunken cost fallacies and such from that sort of thing. But honestly, if you look at most things in life, this might come off kind of philosophical, but there's not a lot of things that are permanent, and I move on from that sort of thing real quick. Just like, I had my time, I got my value out of it, it was a lot of fun, and it's time to move on.
I definitely see a lot of people that don't want to quit the game because they spent X amount of time building all these heroes. They don't want to throw it all away, or they spent this amount of money, and that's just kind of keeping them tied to the game.
That's really not good, like not good mentality. Like it's really easy for me to just move on from that sort of thing. Even my current account, like if I had to retire, it probably wouldn't be the hardest thing in the world. Like if Fire Emblem Heroes goes in a direction that I just can say I'm not having fun anymore, I'm not gonna like have any of the sunken cost fallacies or anything like that would keep me there. I have an obligation as a content creator and like as an educator, and that's where I would feel kind of guilty and regret about. But when it comes to Fire Emblem Heroes, like it's not my wife or something, I don't have an obligation to it. One day it won't be permanent, and then we'll go do something else.
Well, that's also something that people have to understand. This game's not going to go forever. Like, when people spend on this stuff, they should understand it. It's not for something that's like tangible. What you feel, whatever, yeah, like that's something you can take out of it. But at the end of the day, you're not like, you don't actually own this game, and this game, like all other games, will one day go out. It's just people don't keep that in mind, unfortunately.
Anything tangible eventually has an end.
Well, yeah, even then it has an end, but there's probably a more definite end when it comes to virtual games.
We're going grim now, boys.
I know.
I will say, because I was kind of on that same boat beforehand, where I was like, I wanted to quit because the game just wasn't too fun for me. But at the same time, I'm like, I spent all this money.
Yeah.
But then instead of like justifying that reason, I was like, instead of quitting because I don't enjoy it, why don't I find something else to enjoy it? Because the biggest problem why I wanted to quit is because the competitive aspect to it was a burnout for me. It was it got too much. You need to get this, you need to get that. Then you got to spend more money, and to the point where it was like, I can't do this anymore. I gotta live. I can't just put all my money in the game.
Well, the good news is you don't have to do that, but the bad news is it could be more frustrating.
Oh yeah, and that's why it got to the point where it just hit me. I'm like, why am I doing all of this? I'm just gonna find something else to do. And sure enough, ever since I've done that, I've just been enjoying the game more. I just fool around in aspects of it. I just find my own way of having fun, in a sense. And I guess that's why I've been enjoying it more and more. And I guess because of that, I found less reasons to spend on this game. I still spend, but not as much as I used to. It's just like I dabble here and there, because I am the type of guy where if I do want one thing of something, I will spend to get it. But I'm not gonna like. I no longer go for plus 10 anything anymore. I'm just casual at this point, and it feels nice because I have found myself enjoying things I never enjoyed before.
Yeah, as someone who came from competitive gaming that isn't Fire Emblem Heroes, and I'm talking like League of Legends, World of Warcraft, tons of MMOs, Hearthstone, all these other games always had a much higher time commitment to me. And as like, you know, having a full-time job as a teacher, and the fact that Fire Emblem Heroes isn't grindy by nature, and I can play it like a couple hours a day and maintain the same thrill of competitiveness that I had from playing those other types of games at a high level, is the thing that keeps me playing this game. Honestly, if it was a grindy gacha, I probably wouldn't be playing it. You know, like that's my biggest value here.
You know, it's actually kind of funny that you say that, because in terms of all the other gacha games I play, at this point, I'm 5. This is the most time-consuming one of them all, actually.
Fire Emblem Heroes.
Yeah, in terms of Dragalia Lost, Langrisser, FGO, Azure Lane, it's actually FEH that takes the most amount of time.
How's that possible?
Actually, I do have to disagree. I've found Dragalia, because I only played Dragalia Lost and Fire Emblem Heroes. I found myself not playing Dragalia Lost for quite some time, actually, because at least with Fire Emblem Heroes, sometimes you don't have to pay attention to do some of the things, so you can just leave it to do its own thing. But with like Dragalia Lost, for example, you have to invest yourself. Like, you can't just put it away and like have it do things by itself. You actually have to sit there and look at it. And if you don't have that time, unfortunately, you're just not going to be able to play the game like you used to.
Wait,
that's why I haven't picked it up.
Wait, don't get me wrong. I mean, like, playing it at a top level. Like, being fully invested in your characters and, you know, having a game plan every single day. Like, I mean, these other games, Azure Lane, Dragalia Lost, I've seen them, and I've even played a little bit into them. The amount of time commitment to get to like the highest level there is way different than Fire Emblem Heroes. Anyone I've talked to has always said those are way grindy by nature.
Oh yeah,
they are.
That's what I was gonna get at, because that's what I do. I do want to end up eventually going to the top and fighting basically the end game content, and it is quite the chore. And especially if you don't spend money in this game, because if you don't, then to really get like what you need, you're gonna be there for a long time. With Faye, I don't see you staying that long in comparison.
Let's look at like Dragalia. Like, right, their end game content is this battle called the High Dragon Fights, where you fight like stronger versions of dragons, and most people still aren't even there yet, and they just released an easier version of one of those High Dragon Fights for people to start getting their foot in the door. And it's been 6 months since the game's been out, whereas Aetherytes has been out for how many months? And a lot of people are starting to reach that like high tier
Yeah,
now.
I've had plenty of people tell me, like they don't play that much and they're already in like tier 21 ether rates. So many people, like even people with one air, not even a second air, has been making it into the end game of Fire Emblem Heroes. Like that's a notable accomplishment. Like I'm really happy for those type of people that can pull it off. But those guys don't have to spend this sort of time that compares to the grind that I've known from other types of games. And this is why I'm comparing it to other like MMOs. I used to be the type of player who when I was younger played like WoW like 12, 14 hours a day. Go to bed, wake up, let's go farm some daily quests and level
Yeah,
my
'cause
research
wanted-
my character, watch YouTube videos. Same with StarCraft. If I wasn't playing StarCraft, I was reading StarCraft. It was like there was like my life, but I can't do this anymore as like an adult with like a full-time job. And with FEH, it's like I don't play it unless I'm streaming, and that's the best feeling in the world for me, at least.
Okay, but no, and the biggest thing is in terms of just doing all your fulfillments for every day and keeping up competitively in that way. So in that term, though, FEH does take more time than everything else, because for everything else, if you want to get further, yeah, you do the extra grinding, but in terms of completing your daily obligations, getting the most out of the game from at that much, because you could always just grind. Those other games have like an endless amount of grinding in them, because FEH doesn't have grinding in them. If you want to go further in those games, you commit that extra time for those extra resources that you get in return. FEH doesn't give you that option. So that's the only reason I can see what you're saying, because in those games there are no limits. You go as long as you have more, their equivalent of stamina.
And that limit is that limit is exactly what I love, because I can do what I need to for the day and say, okay, I'm done. Like Arena and Arena Assault once a week, Ether Raids twice a day. Let's say the most it would take me is 2 hours a day on Ether Raids if I have some incredibly tough matches. And for Arenas, again, 30 minutes to an hour a week. Arena Assault, again, 30 minutes to an hour a week. So in a given week, I probably spend 14 hours minimum to 20 hours of that gameplay a week, which is how much I could do in a day as a younger person for like a single other game for top level, comparatively speaking.
Okay, because in most games, it comes down to just making sure you stay on top of like these events, these extras every day. Like in
Tempest Trials, Voting Gauntlet, Forging Bonds. These are like auto battle.
Mm-hmm.
Just click that auto battle button, and that's easy because I can just click the button while I'm
doing something
on
else,
the I'm like on the transit or marking tests or watching a video, something like that, and it takes no effort. So I don't consider it time consuming from my point of view for stuff that can be done without conscious, focused effort.
On the flip side of all this, I hear this a lot. People say there's not enough content in the game to do, which is kind of like the other side to it not being a very grindy game. And that's also caused a lot of people to burn out or to just not play as much.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. If I was younger, FEH would not catch my mind, like not catch my focus for very long. Like I get bored of it. The long con is what I enjoy here, but as someone, I would have found a different game to spend my energy on if it wasn't the way FEH was designed right now.